Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of PodSaveChocolate. My name is Clay Gordon, and I am your host today. And today we're talking about what makes good chocolate good. Now, that may sound like a silly question. We all put chocolate in our mouth, and we know what good is, good to us. But it turns out that there are some places on the internet where people discuss things like what makes good chocolate good, and PodSaveChocolate and The Chocolate Life are two of those places. Before we get into today's episode, I want to remind everybody who might be watching that you can go into the comments and let me know where in the world you are connecting from. And I'm sorry if it looks like my connection is a little uneven. It looks a little uneven to me. I don't know if it looks uneven to you. But you can go into the live chat on YouTube or the comments on LinkedIn and Facebook and let me know where in the world you are connecting from. Also, if you have a question or a comment about anything that I'm going to be talking about today, you can put it in the comments. I'll get everything up on screen and we'll have a chance to just give you a shout out and say thank you very much for watching, or to answer the question as best as I can during the course of the episode. So this episode of Pod Save Chocolate, like every episode, is sponsored by the members of The Chocolate Life. And here is the homepage of TheChocolateLife.com. Right now, you can go there and you can become a member. Click on the green button in the upper right-hand corner. It'll say join. I'm logged in, so it doesn't say join, but you can click on the green button and you could become a member, right? I produce all of this content, and that content is sponsored by the members, and I deliver all the content. I make all the content free to the entire world so that anybody can can watch it, participate in it, consume it, share it, do whatever it is they want with it. And if you'd like to support the work that I do, you can go to The Chocolate Life and you can become a member. Always a free membership, but if you do have the resources, there are premium membership tiers to support the work that I do. And with that, let's get into the topic for today. And I will, for some reason, I'm having trouble finding my cursor, say that here's the post for today's episode. Right, I produce a post for every episode of Pod Save Chocolate. Here's the post for today. And again, the topic is what makes a good chocolate good. And this is the run of the show, the order that I'm going to be talking about things in general, and then also links to other resources that I've made available over the course of my research on it and during the episode itself, to the extent that it's possible for me to do this. And so I do this so that you don't have to worry about what the URLs are of any of the pages that I'm listening to. You can go to this page after the podcast and you can go follow along at your own pace. But today's episode is about what makes a good chocolate good. And as I point out, the whole idea of quality, what is quality? How do we find quality? How do we define quality? Are there objective measures of quality? Is it all subjective? Is good the same thing as quality? These are things that I have talked about on many, many, many occasions over the course of the 2 years or so that Pod Save Chocolate has been running. But the specifics of this came to me as a result of this episode, so episode 125 of Craft Chocolate TV. And Craft Chocolate TV is hosted by Dylan Butterbaugh of Manoa Chocolate in Hawaii, for whom I have an enormous amount of respect. And my history with Dylan goes way back to his early days and my early days working with the Italian equipment manufacturer FBM. So Dylan purchased his first continuous tempering machine, little 4-kilogram Aura tempering machine from me. Around the time I started working with FBM. So this is back in 2012, 2013. So I've known and been aware of Dylan. He had been posting videos about he's got this bicycle powered cracker in Wentworth. I mean, that's how far back we go. He's grown way beyond, and which is one of the reasons why I have a huge amount of respect for the work that he and his team have done. Is they've managed to grow by producing a quality product that people want to buy. But the question that occurred to me as I was watching this is, number one, who is this video for? And what do we think about the way Dylan thinks about what good is? And that sent me down a rabbit hole of of um, of research. And one of the things that I did is, I'm now in a browser which is called Arc, and one of the things that the company behind this browser, called the Browser Company, is doing is they're bringing out a differently focused browser. The focus, excuse me, is on people who do research. And the first beta test group was students. And I have been a part of, I just joined the beta test group. And so I've got this new browser, which is called Dia. And I'm going to jump myself down in the corner because I'm not set up to work with Dia. And so what I did is I opened up Dia, and then I opened up this video in Dia. And one of the things that Dia enables me to do, it enables me to ask questions or chat using the AI terminology like ChatGPT. It allows me to chat with things that are in windows or within tabs. And so the window is open and I can ask Dia, right? So summarize the video and give me timestamps of the video, which it did. And if we go and we take a look at this, this is the post on the Chocolate Life, you'll see that what I've done is I've copied the timestamps and the summarization from Dia. So this is an interesting use of AI. I think it's useful for the summarization. What it does is it gives people an opportunity, gives me an opportunity to start thinking about where I want to begin my research. Not that I'm going to take any AI at its word. But then I also asked it some other questions. So I would like to know more about what the host has to say about texture preferences. We'll get to the video and what Dylan is talking about. And then please provide the exact quotes. Right. And then, how does the presenter define bean quality? Because that's a topic that comes up, right? And it gives time steps where these concepts are introduced. I was thinking about the word good. So I asked about ethical sourcing in terms of a definition of good and other questions. And then I got Dia to copy the transcript for me. And so I'll actually copy the transcript, I will format it, and then I will put the transcript into the text for today's post. But so this is a really, really interesting way to use AI as a way of querying what's going on in a video, asking questions that are going on in a video. But first, as a part of this, I went, and so within Dia, I don't necessarily need to interrogate an AI. What I can do is I can say, just do a general search, right? And so what I did is I said, what are some of the meanings of the word good, right? I don't want to have a definition fight, but when we talk about what makes good chocolate good, there is an equivocation in there, right? And what that equivocation is that are we using the word good in two or more different ways? And I think we might be. So we might be using the word good in two or more different ways. So I said, okay, what are some of the definitions of good? So good can mean morally right. It might be high quality, beneficial, or satisfactory, right? So we have a definition of morally right or virtuous, of high quality or standard, beneficial or advantageous, satisfactory or acceptable, pleasant or enjoyable, valid or genuine. And then we have the notion of goods. So as in packaged goods. So it's an object. And so in what sense is Dylan using the word good, right? And he's using the word twice. And this may sound like nitpicking. It may sound like I'm being pedantic, but a lot of my job is around, or a lot of the work that I do and has been for more than 20 years, is around this notion of helping people understand what they like and why they like it, right? And what is good for them. As a critic, one of my tasks is to try a piece of chocolate and then pass judgment on it. Another task is to place that chocolate in context with other chocolates. And the question of what is good, what are the criteria that I used to determine what is good or what is quality, is really, really important. And I hadn't really thought about this question of what makes a quality chocolate from using the word good before. And so it was interesting to me as a topic to explore. And then I did go and ask again, of all the definitions above seem to be subjective, are there objective definitions of the word good? Right? And there are, having to do with economics and logic and philosophy. You may say objective definitions of good in terms of logic and philosophy. So there, what we're doing, I think, is we're talking about the difference between objective and subjective. And some people are saying that there are objectively good things, which is a little bit different from absolute good. So objective good is that independent of a mind, this is good, right? Whereas subjective good is only objective. You'll follow along with this, is that once we have decided upon a goal, good is this, then what we can, which is the goal is subjectively chosen, then what we can do is we can say, does this meet the definition of good given the goal that we have set? In which case there is an objective measurement that we can make, or an objective evaluation that we can make relative to this goal that has been set. All goals are necessarily subjective. So is there objective good? The answer is, it's a concept that exists in the mind. So the answer is no. First, what we have to do is we have to set a subjective reference point. And once we've agreed upon what that subjective reference point is, what we can do is with them, we can determine how close to that subjective reference point do we get. Right. So a little bit technical, but this logic and philosophy aspect of things turns out to be important. Right? There's another aspect of good which has to do with quality control and manufacturing. And here, quality, again, is an interesting topic. As I have said before, quality is a basket of attributes. Right? And while you and I may have the same attributes in our basket, we may have very different attributes in our basket, but while you and I may have the same basket of attributes, we might value each of those attributes differently. So what you think of as valuable and what I think of valuable may be different. And if we were to go and look at all of the attributes that are in our basket, we might come up with different definitions of quality. But what I will say is that one measure of quality is what you're willing to pay for. What you think of as quality is going to depend on what you take out your wallet and you buy. And that's a signal of what you think quality is at a macro level, even if you're not going to be thinking about what the individual attributes are. So if you think Hershey's chocolate is good, you'll buy it. And that's a signal that you like, or someone you know likes Hershey chocolate. If you don't like Hershey chocolate, it's not quality, you're not going to buy it. Right? And that's, I think, a good way to think about quality is what you're willing to pay for. And is quality the same thing as good? They're synonyms in some respects and not completely, as we can see from these definitions. So for me, this is the first place I started. What is good after looking at Dylan's video? Now, I'm not going to be doing a response to this video, in part because I'm sharing my screen so I can jump back and forth. I'm not sharing this tab, and so I can only share audio from an individual tab. So I'm not going to be going and sharing the video. What I have done, of course, is in the post for today's episode, you have the video here, and you can go and follow it along yourself. And then after the episode is over, I will embed the transcript. And so you can follow along that way, or you can turn on the closed captioning. So let's begin here. All right. So as I understand it, as I read it, as I play through it, um, what Dylan is doing, and this is something that he explicitly says at the end of a roughly 5-minute video. What Dylan is saying is that all of this is his opinion. What makes a good chocolate good? All of the opinions expressed in this video are his, right? And generally, you might not want to take everything. You're going to want to take everything that he says in that context, right? But again, he doesn't get to that to the end. He also intimates, again, towards the end, that his audience for this is chocolate makers. His audience for this is not necessarily the general public. And here is an interesting question. So that for me poses an interesting question, which is how does someone who is not a chocolate maker or someone who is not a chocolate aficionado, how do they interpret this video? Especially if they're only listening to it, they're not reading what's going on. So what Dylan says is we're going to ask ourselves the question, what is good chocolate? Right? It's a great place to start. He set the problem up. And he says this is a pretty straightforward question, which I disagree with. What is good is not a straightforward question. There are lots of variables that go into this, right? What he says is we, and by this we, he meaning Manoa chocolate, right? So we can provide that context. We can make good chocolate because we start with good beans. So as long as we understand what quality cacao is, we can make good chocolate. And this is, to some extent, this is an unsatisfying, I think is the best way to describe unsatisfying definition for me. That we've got good cacao, and the definition good cacao underlines what the definition of good chocolate is. I'm not entirely sure that's explanatory. It seems a little self-referential, if not circular, because as long as we know what good quality cacao is, we can make good chocolate. Okay. And then he says something that's really important. All we have to do, or then what we have to do, is make sure we don't screw it up in our process. And in that respect, he's echoing something that Art Pollard, who is the founder of Manoa Chocolate, said many, many years ago, which is that, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to see if that makes more sense. That makes more sense in terms of the view. One of the things that Art Pollard said many, many years ago, which is that one of the challenges with chocolate is that every step is the most important step. And that's certainly very true, right? If you've got good quality cocoa beans, however we're defining good and however we're defining quality, and that's one of the challenges that I have with this definition. We can make good chocolate if we use good cocoa beans. That's self-referential. We haven't answered the problem. We've just expanded the context that we're looking at, right? But one of the things that Art Pollard says was that the challenge with chocolate is that every step is the most important step. And chefs will tell you, if you have good ingredients, the main challenge you have is not screwing it up, which is very, very true. You want to make sure that you've got good ingredients, you don't screw them up. So but he also says, if you don't start with good beans, there is no way you can make good chocolate. And here I have to disagree because we don't have a definition of good right now. Now, I would say that it depends on what your definition of good here. And this is really, really important. Right. So if your definition of good quality cocoa beans is very, very high level. So I can only make good quality chocolate if I'm using Criollo or Trinitario beans to a very high level, right? Then I would say no, right? I think that's a little naive. It's a little simplistic, right? Because there are some very high quality Melanato Forasteros, right, which have won Cocoa of Excellence or Cacao of Excellence, which Dylan does reference in this video. That have won Cacao of Excellence awards. So it is possible to make very high quality chocolate from West African or a Melanato Forastero, which are grown in West Africa. And so if what we're talking about, however, is we're not worried about what the genetics are. But what we're talking about is cocoa beans that come from healthy trees, cocoa beans that have fermented and dried properly. And so our definition is a little more sophisticated than our definition of quality is a little more sophisticated than just genetics. Then there is a case to be made, right? But it turns out that there is a lot of cultural context. So, what is considered to be good in Mexico might be very different from what is considered to be good in France. And what is considered to be good in Brazil might be very, very different from what is considered good in Colombia or Panama or someplace else. And so, this notion of that there is an objective measure of good, right, is one that I would challenge. Right, all of these definitions are subjective. Right, what is my background, my culinary background, my cultural background when it comes to food? All of these things are going to play into a definition of what is good. Right, but he also goes on. Dylan also goes on to say, but there is no way you can make good chocolate if you don't start off with good cocoa beans. And again, depending upon what your definition of good is, I think this is tautologically true, right? And very, very obvious. If you start off with unfermented beans, which are moldy and mildewy, it's going to be impossible to make a good chocolate from them. Uh, Again, good means is it going to be edible, right? So we can say that. It's going to be that the lack of fermentation, imperfect drying, the mold and mildew is going to mask, right, the interesting chocolate flavors or desirable chocolate flavors. But there's a lot of cocoa out there which has got a percentage of mold and mildew, and it goes in as long as the percentage is low enough, it will go into industrial chocolate. And uh, commodity chocolate made from commodity cocoa beans. And so we need to be very careful is in saying what is good. There are millions and millions and millions of people who think Hershey chocolate is good, not just a signal or to single out Hershey's. There are millions and millions and millions of people who think that chocolate from Lindt is good. There are millions and millions of people who think that world's finest chocolate is good chocolate, right? Are they made from good quality beans? Uh, you know, Fit for purpose might be a way of thinking about them, but that's very, very different from trying to come up with an objective definition of what good means. So, good chocolate has good flavor. Again, this is a tautology and it's self-referential. Good chocolate has good flavor. It hasn't told us anything, right? It just says that good is good, right? It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay, so that beginning and the middle and the end might suggest that there's flavor development over time, right? As opposed to a one note chocolate. And there are a lot of specialty chocolates which are fairly one note, right? That there's not a lot of evolution of flavor from the time I put it in the mouth until the time it ends. And so, even though it is a specialty chocolate, my definition is made from specialty beans. Um, and we can go into what specialty cocoa beans, how I define those. But um, there are a lot of specialty chocolates which are one note. I know that I've tasted them in judging, right? Are we going to define them as good or not? And the answer is it may not be to my taste. There may be people who like it, but to say that good chocolate has good flavor because it has a beginning and a middle and an end, right, is a little self-referential. Why am I going into all of this? Why does it make sense? Because I want you, as you follow your path, as you follow your journey, to realize that you're not the center of the world, right? What you think makes sense for you. That it's not your job to tell somebody else that their sense of taste is bad or that their sense of taste is wrong, right? That what they like is bad. If you don't like it, if it's not to your taste, you don't have to eat it, right? My goal as a critic is no longer to impress people that I have the finest taste in the world and I am the arbiter of what makes good chocolate or what makes tasty chocolate or what chocolate you, right, should be interested in consuming. That's not my goal. My goal is to help you understand what it is about the chocolate that you like that you're responding to, right? Is it a flavor connection is a connection to a childhood memory, right? What is it about what you're eating that you're responding to, right? I respond a lot to texture. I know that about myself, right? If the texture is wrong, as a judge, I'm not going to give a chocolate my highest remarks. Dylan, that's his next point in the transcript. He says he thinks a good chocolate has a good flavor and it is beginning, a middle, and end, and there's usually a nice texture that comes with it. Right? He does describe flavor in the context of texture, which is, I think, the fact that he might not be reading from a script, or maybe he is, but he may be doing this ad lib, and I'm doing this ad lib. He says that there's usually a nice texture that comes with it that has a range of flavors and nuances that come and originate from the beans. So he's going on and he's continuing to say that you need good quality cocoa beans to make good quality chocolate. And he's intimating that texture has an influence on flavor, to which I completely and totally agree. But then he goes on later in the video and he says, for me, and it's really important that he says for me at some point, that what he likes a very smooth texture. What he is the founder of Manoa, and the chocolate that he's making, they want to make chocolate that has a particle size distribution below 20 microns. Right? So I don't know if that's the center of particle size distribution or that's the maximum particle size, with the center which is a little bit lower. I don't know the answer to that question. But he likes things for which there is no rustic texture. So for Dylan, it would be interesting to know, even though this is what he likes to make, right? His definition of what makes good chocolate would actually exclude this bar from Chocolate Tree in Scotland. They're 70% Mexico Aztec spice, which is a rustic chocolate. So in the Mexican tradition, the ingredients are not fully refined. There is a texture. Right? There are many people out there who like chocolate from Taza. Taza has a rustic texture, and they like it. And for them, it is good. There's a whole genre of chocolate from Modica in Sicily, which has got a texture to it. It's got large sugar crystals, and the chocolate is not fully refined and has a very, very distinct kind of texture to it, which is not what a under 20 micron European style, which is how I classify these things. It is a European style chocolate when it has that particular particle size distribution before you add anything to it. It's also, Dylan's talk about what makes good chocolate good, and 20 microns would mean that this award-winning bar from Fuan, so this is their Taiwan No. 9 Pingtung Double Ferment Rough Ground. So that's not good chocolate, and in my opinion, it is. And another bar, the Beer Yeast No. 1 Armstrong Ale Style Rough Ground chocolate. So this definition of good doesn't include rustic style chocolates. That's fine. If you watch the entire video all the way to the end, right, and you get to the point that says, this philosophy guides what it is that we do here at Manoa. And if you're a chocolate maker, right, so bean to bar chocolate maker, this is what we do, right? And you might want to consider what it is that we do, right, and how we go about sourcing things. So he talks about the kind of milk they use. He talks about the kind of sugar they use. He talks about going and looking at the Cacao of Excellence and the beans that win those awards, and then looking at the Cacao of Excellence as a guide to searching for beans that can be used to make good quality chocolate. So the primary purpose of what it is that I'm doing here is around that idea, right? Is what is good. Good is a personal preference. We've heard from Dylan that this is his personal preference. This is what he is looking for, right? When he wants to make a chocolate. This is what Dylan likes. He likes to make a European style texture chocolate. He says, I like to add extra cocoa butter. He's not against using lecithin, but he prefers to use cocoa butter. These are choices that chocolate makers need to make for themselves. And I think Dylan does a really good job toward the end of the video of making that very, very clear. But again, if you are watching this because you are a craft chocolate maker, right, and you have the patience to read through, to watch through to the end, to follow along the transcript and things like that, you'll understand that. But if you're a member of the general public who's looking at this, who's going, oh man, I've seen Manoa, I've purchased bars, I think they're great, I'm going to go and take a look and see what they have to say about what makes a good chocolate good. So I need to look for a chocolate that's made from good quality beans. It has to have a smooth texture. Maybe not. Right? Dylan is absolutely right from his perspective and what it is that he wants to do as a chocolate maker from Manoa. I am not trying to say anything else other than that. I love the brand. I love the work that they do. I've had many, many examples of it, and they're very, very competent chocolate makers. What they do is very good, and they also produce chocolate for other people on the island of Hawaii. I mean, it's really, really important that we understand that exactly where this is coming from, and that's what this is all about: paying close attention. So I didn't get an opportunity to make this available, but I will point a link to this. That There was an article recently, which is published by The Hill, which I have it on my phone. I will put the link to this article on the post for today. That says that Chat GPT can harm an individual's critical thinking over time. A study released this month from MIT, particularly looking at people between the ages of 18 and 30, that if you rely on Chat GPT, can link to cognitive decline, which I think is interesting. And what they're talking about is there are people who are going into Chat GPT, they're using Chat GPT or some other LLM, could be Mistral, whatever it is that you're using, and then you take what it is that they give you at face value, right? And you're not questioning what's going on. And so this was the topic of my previous episode. Can we rely on AI? And I focused specifically on Tony's Chocolonely and their open chain annual report. And I wanted to share for the rest of today's episode. Let's take this as a break. If you're watching, no matter where you're watching, what are your thoughts about good being good, right? Of course, if you're a member of the Chocolate Life, what you can do is after the episode and you've watched the video from Dylan, what you can do is you can post comments on this you can post comments on the post on the Chocolate Life. So here is the post. Here is today's post on the Chocolate Life. Here. So if you're a member, you can go down and you can post down here in the member discussion, and I will answer all of the questions that you have and respond to all of the comments that are down there. So if you can watch this after the fact and let me know what you think, or you can comment after the fact and let me know if you're not going to do it in the live. So please, I read every single one of these comments and I will respond to them. And then I read all the comments that might be on LinkedIn or that might be on Facebook or can be on YouTube, and I respond to all of those as well. But what I want to do, if I can, is go to another bit of exploration that I did, right, as I was thinking about what today's topic was. And that is this, which is after I use Dia to take a look at the meanings of good. And what I will do also is I will put these into a text document and I will upload those. So if you want to download these, you can get a sense for what it is that I'm thinking of. Oh, and by the way, just so you know, one of the things that Dia enables me to do, it enables me to personalize this. So I can say, well, who inspires you? And so it will use that as information to figure out how it is going to respond. The tone is going to respond, right? And so how do you best digest information? What is it that I'm looking for in responses? How am I going to use the responses, right? And in what style do I want them, the responses to be written in? So I like informative, I like informal, which might be contradictory in terms, but these are things that I can do when I asked Dia to go through and look at things. And so one of the things that I immediately did with Dia is I said, what makes good chocolate good? Is there a widespread consensus? And one of the things it said to me is that it used Chat GPT, and it let me know which level of the model. So good chocolate is defined by high quality ingredients, careful processing, and balanced flavor. I'm going to try to see if there's a way that what I can do is I can share this with everybody. I don't know how I would do that right now. I'm going to figure it out. All right. But it says, what makes good chocolate good? The essence of good chocolate lies in a few key factors: cacao quality, processing, ingredients, texture and mouthfeel, and flavor balance. Right. And for the most part, I would agree, as long as we understand that many of these things are in fact personal preferences, right? So is there widespread consensus around these things? There's broad agreement among chocolate makers and connoisseurs on the above fundamentals, but personal preferences play a big role, and to which I absolutely have to agree. Now, for some reason, I didn't ask it about craft chocolate, but I think Dia may know a little bit about me through my history of what it is that I've looked for, because I've been using the Arc browser for 2 years. Right? It pulled craft chocolate in here. Not entirely sure why they did that, but it did. And there's an internal reference, so it jumps me down to another part of the page, where I can go look at things. Right? It also lets me know that has been personalized for me. Right? And I can run the same response without any of my personalized settings, which is pretty cool, right? And I asked it what the sources are, and it gave me what the list of sources for its response were, including the original Beans website, a website that I'm not familiar with called Coda Signature, Coco Terra, La Maison de Chocolat, Bean to Bar World, Coco Co, Chocolatiers, FDA standards, and it gets the Federal Agricultural Organization here, the FAO, or the Food and Agricultural Organization here, and then Reddit and community discussions. So for me, it's interesting to go and then follow along with the sources that it found, right? And this is why I like to use the AIs. So the large language models is particularly query them about what their sources are, so that I can go and review things. I then asked Dia, what are the differences between specialty chocolate, craft chocolate, artisan chocolate, and bean to bar chocolate? I misspelled it just to make sure that it would follow along. And it says the terms overlap, but each highlights a different philosophy. And so I've got a definition for what these things are. And then I asked to define what craft chocolate was specifically. And did I ask it twice? Nope, I didn't ask it twice. That was just me. So, I did ask it twice. What is craft chocolate? What is craft chocolate? And what's interesting is that, and this is a fun thing to do with AIs, is to ask it the same question twice and to see if it comes up with the same answer. And in this particular case, it did not. Right? So it comes up with different responses to the same question, asking the question yesterday and asking the day today. Right? So I'm going through and I'm finding, okay, gosh, what is the definition of good chocolate? Right? And I've got a whole bunch of resources and I've got a whole bunch of language. And what I can do then is I can ask Gemini exactly the same question. What makes good chocolate good? Is there widespread consensus? And I did. And I can't export this. If I'm doing deep research, I can export the deep research. I have to copy and paste this. But I asked it, what makes good chocolate good? Right? And it gave me an answer. Right? I asked it again, and it gave me a slightly different answer. Right? Right? So you can see here, I don't know that if you can see here directly, I'm going to find a way to copy and paste these things. But it gave me a bunch of bullet lists within it. But importantly, I have a list of sources for all of these things. They're only Theo Chocolate and Willie's Cacao. I think that's an interesting choice of sources. But again, I have all these really interesting sources. So I then asked it to do deep research, right? So I asked it to take this concept, what makes good chocolate good? Is there widespread consensus? And I asked it to do deep research. And it came up with defining quality standards. I don't necessarily know that that's what I asked it for, right? But here is the research. Here are the results of the research. All right, I've asked it what makes good chocolate good, right? And this is the prompt. What makes good chocolate good, right? And it came back with The Anatomy of Excellence, a comprehensive report on quality and consensus in the world of chocolate, right? Which is pretty ambitious given the simplicity of the prompt that I asked it to answer. Um, it's also, as I said in my previous episode, this is written very confidently and very authoritatively. The language on this is confident and authoritative. And there are places where, if you read it, you would say that um, this is truth with a capital T. That and this is where I think that many of the large language models fail, is that there's not a whole lot of skepticism in what they're doing, in the way they respond. I would be interesting to see if what I can do is I can go into DIA and I can ask the same question with and without personalization. I'll play with this, in which one of the aspects of personalization is I am a skeptic, right? Please take my skepticism into account as you're thinking about this. So chocolate for many, right, is a simple pleasure, right? Yet for a confectionery treat, and this spells confectionery with an A, associated with comfort, celebration, indulgent, yet beneath its familiar surface lies a world of staggering complexity. Like fine wine or specialty coffee, chocolate is an agricultural and artisanal product. It's also an industrial product, right? It overlooks, whose final character is the culmination of a long and precarious journey, a collaboration between nature and human ingenuity, the transformation from bitter seed to a silken aromatic bar. So one of the things that I now see is that because I'm allowing, or I'm not limiting the scope of what it is that Gemini is searching for, what it's doing is it's providing me with more than one source. When I was looking at Tony's Chocolate Only, of course, it only provided me with that one source because that was the source that I constrained the search to. But I have Gen Z chocolate preference from the journal, from Formosa publisher. I haven't looked these. Magno Chocolate, which is interesting. It's a Colombian chocolate maker. I've had the founder of it as a guest on an episode of Pod Save Chocolate, and also the Chocolate Glossary from the Fine Chocolate Industry Association. So this reality, right, where every step represents an opportunity for the either expression of excellence or the introduction of ruinous flaws. Interesting, right? So I want to go, right, and really, I can export this and then I'll save it as a doc, and I will include it in today's post so you can go and read it. But what I really want you to go and take a look at is the fact that this is an LLM, and given just this, right, that very simple prompt, what makes good chocolate good? Is there widespread consensus? What it has done is it's done a really remarkably competent, not necessarily comprehensive, and certainly not necessarily authoritative, but it has done a better job, in my opinion, of doing a high level description of what good chocolate is than I find on the blogs from many websites. Now, again, I am not entirely certain what's going on in my end and whether me seeing me freeze means that you've lost my audio or not. So if you're watching, please go into the comments. Let me know if this is really distracting for you. I'm not entirely sure. It's really breezy here today, so maybe the breeze is blowing the Wi-Fi in the wrong direction. I'm gonna put this. I'm gonna put this in. It's very very long. It's many many pages long, right? But um, it's got a really interesting, um, and detailed approach. Again, I was surprised at just how competent it is. There's a lot that I can call into question. There's a lot that I don't agree with, but it is really, really quite well done. And it's got some tables in here which are really, really nice. So, what is the appearance, the aroma, texture? I mean, it's got here's got this excellent quality, indicators of poor quality. I mean, it's done a good job. When I didn't ask it about the genesis of flavor, but it brought in concepts of genetics and terroir. It's a little unsophisticated in that it only mentions Criollo Forastero and Trinitario. There's a lot more to the genetics of cacao there, but the influence of terroir, the farmer's hand, critical transformation. It's got a lot of the stuff really, really well done. I mean, I am going to go and find a way to publish this result right on the Chocolate Life, as and make it available because I think it's an amazingly good guide. Of course, what I will do is I will go and edit it to make sure that people understand where I agree and disagree with it. But I think that it's a really really interesting start that I think you people should go and take a look at, which is why I'm going to publish it. Right. So one of the reasons why I like Dia. So one of the things why I like Dia is that what it does is it allows me to take two different tabs. So this good chocolate description by Dia and this good chocolate description from Gemini. And then I can say, how are the two descriptions the same or how are they different? So, and that's what I've done here. I've grabbed two different tabs in my browser here in Dia, and I've said, how are their definitions the same? Where do they differ? What are the common sources of information that they cite? Right? And here again, what it did, it uses Chat GPT. It uses other models, but it lets me know which model it is used for any particular question. And it lets me know how the Dia representation and the the Gemini representation are different. They both define good chocolate by bean quality, processing, sensory excellence, and ethics, but differ in depth and emphasis. And this is a really interesting aspect. When we go back and we think about this video from Manoa, the notion of good having to do with ethical sourcing is nowhere in that video, right? He doesn't talk about ethical sourcing as a part of what it means to be good. He's only talking about flavor characteristics and the eating experience, mouthfeel experience. So important thing to know. If you had the question, it's one of the reasons why I asked about definitions of good, right? When I did that. So, and what the reason why I asked this, why I asked Dia to weigh in on this, and it's not a question that I can ask Gemini directly that I'm aware of. I'd have to find a way to turn these into documents and then upload them to the deep research component. And it might tell me more than I want to know, is that it said where the different definitions are the same. Right? And it also told me where they're different, right? And so in terms of emphasis and terminology and language and cultural and psychological factors, and it gave me the common sources of information, right? And the overlap and why and how, right? So it says both Dia and Gemini agree on the technical, sensory, and ethical pillars of good chocolate, but Gemini's definition is more expansive and analytical, while Dia's is more distilled and practical. Right? So what this does is this gives me a guide, number one, to how the two synopsize information. And again, this is the deep research on Gemini. It's not the first. It's not the first cut at the problem, and I could go back and do it again with a different cut on the problem and see how it's different. But for me, what using like dueling large language models might be the way to think about it. Dueling large language models, is a really good way to help you hone in on the research that you're looking at, right? And so, you know, this is the exploration that I'm going to be doing using these results going on in the future, is to ask Dia how it and Gemini think about different aspects of the same project. So, for example, here's another one. I asked it to, what are the again? I asked Gemini, what are the differences between specialty chocolate, craft chocolate, artisan chocolate, and bean to bar? And the response from Dia, right, was fairly short, right? So a couple hundred words, right? But Gemini gave me an answer here, which is again fairly short, but it gave me this really, really interesting table, right? That I can go take a look at and say, do I agree or disagree with it? What are the overlaps, right? So bean to bar is control over the entire process from raw cacao to finished chocolate. That's certainly very true. Craft chocolate talks about quality, ethics, and flavor in small batches and is typically bean to bar, right? Which, I mean, it doesn't have to be bean to bar, right? And it does differentiate elsewhere the difference between chocolate maker and chocolatiers, which I think is also really, really interesting. But they then asked Gemini to go through and do a deep research on that same topic. And it gave me an incredibly detailed, I think it's like 40 pages long, right? And this is different from the way it talked about good. And I got to say again, I am well, there are philosophical differences and there are language and terminology difference that they are using. The most important aspect of this is I believe, this chocolate terminology, and I can export the interactive version on screen. Interactive in the sense that here are the links and where they're posted to, and it gives me footnote markers for what they're talking about. What I can do is when I do download it right into a doc, right? So this is the doc version, it's the non-interactive version, and what is it? It's at 20 pages. But I have 2 pages of footnotes. So here are the sources in individual pages, right? That what I can do is I can now go and look and see. And so from somebody who is interested in these kinds of topics, this is a really, really valuable resource. Not that I'm always, or not that I'm even necessarily going to use the language that is presented to me at face value. And I am certainly not going to accept what it is that they're talking about at face value. But notice within this table here, maybe it's going to be really difficult, but within this table here, key differentiators, what I do is I have a link, even though it's not an interactive link. So I do have the footnote link. So what I can do is I can go and find out, right? So it looked at, right, an entry in the FCIA chocolate glossary for the phrase specialty cacao, right? And so I can go and find out where I can do more research. And this is for me the value, right? That what I've done again is I'm not necessarily going to take what it is that the LLM gives back to me at face value. What I do have is the ability to go and find out what the sources are. Then I can use those sources to be able to, and I realize, hey, I've been doing this the entire time. Yay. I don't have this up here. I took it down for the episode with the authors of Onde Cresce, o Chocolate from Brazil. So I just want to be really, really straightforward and let you know what my position is with all of this. And I realize, for some reason, is my camera not focused properly? I'm not entirely sure what happened. That the for whatever the quality is, but I want to close today's episode by saying um, there are no absolute measures of quality. There is no objective measure of good, right? It's that all measures of quality, all measures of good are subjective, right? And our sense of taste, our sense of smell, the food culture that we grew up in are going to be the primary determiners of what we determine to be good and quality. People are going to tell you, people like Dylan are going to share with you their definition of quality, right? And you should accept that when Dylan says that this is what he, as a chocolate maker, as the founder of Manoa, right, as the head chocolate maker of Manoa, this is what and this is what we, as Manoa, think is good chocolate, right? And here's what we're looking to do, right? Here's how we're looking to, uh, here are the criteria that we use to evaluate what it is. Because take that as face value and then incorporate it into your assessment, particularly of their chocolate. If they say, this is what we're looking for, this is what we're doing, when you taste their chocolate, you can say, okay, here's what they're looking to do. And do I think that they've met their own standards? That's a really solid question to ask. Um, and so I think it's really a value. I'm going to try something really quickly. I am going to go and switch over to, let me do this. Let me switch over to this screen. Um, that's interesting. I'll switch over to this screen. I'm going to turn my camera off for just a quick second and then turn it back on. And nope, it hasn't refocused. So I have no idea what's going on in any event. Um, the definition of what is good, what makes good chocolate good, is a personal decision. I would say that if it is to your taste, if you like it, it is good for you, right? You like it, it's good. I mean, that's a tautological definition. If you don't like it, it's not good. If anybody else likes it and you don't like it, it's good for them. It's not good for you. There are no absolute objective measures of quality. If you grew up in Sicily and you like Modican chocolate, I'm not going to try to convince you that it is bad. However, if you grew up in Paris and like the chocolate from Valrhona, Bonat, Pralou, Cluizel, you know, and French chocolate makers, then you're going to be predisposed to like that style of chocolate and think that it is good. And this is the exploration that I'm on, and this is the exploration that you're on. You're finding out what good means to you. And how do you incorporate other people's ideas of what good is a really important aspect of your journey. And I look at the way other judges judge the Craft Chocolate Challenge, for example. They have very different concepts of exactly the same chocolates that I'm tasting, or judges at the International Chocolate Awards, the Academy of Chocolate, or the Good Food Awards. I've been judges in two of those three. I haven't judged the Academy of Chocolate, but have the International Chocolate Awards and the Good Food Awards. It's always fascinating to me to have the conversations with how other people perceive exactly the same things that um, I'm judging, and that should be your goal too. I believe that do not accept that something is good because other people tell you that it is. Right? Because if you go and everybody else, 9 people out of 10, tell you that this is really, really fabulous and you don't like it, I think the two main, there may be more, but the two main, may not be a true dichotomy, but the two main interpretations you might take from this are um, what's wrong with me, right? If everybody else likes it and I don't, what's wrong with me? Right? I think that's a horrible thing to do. It's just to recognize that other people like it and it's not to your taste. Right? And we can't give up uh, control of our sense of taste, what we like, to the crowd. And this has been something that has happened over the course of the last, 15, 20 years as, community rating sites like Yelp, right, and other sites, right, are become a part of how we navigate the real world. Right? That we look at what the crowd says, we make decisions based on what the crowd says. We go to have that experience, and the experience doesn't live up to expectations or some other aspect, right? And we go, I didn't like it, or it didn't for one reason or another. And who's wrong here? Am I to blame? Or is somebody else to blame? And the answer to the question is no, you're not to blame, right? It's just that you didn't like it, right? And importantly, understand what about it didn't you like? Why didn't you like the experience? Alternatively, why did you like the experience? And coming to that internal realization is part of the process of being able to understand what good is. Good is often, it's sometimes an intellectual exercise. Is this external to you? Are the ingredients ethically sourced? Is the product ethically produced? So but consuming it makes you feel good, right? Because you know that that nobody's been harmed in the process of making it. Or you put something in your mouth and it makes you feel good. Right? So think about that and think about whether or not, right? Um, it makes sense to adopt that sort of relativistic framework rather than saying that this chocolate is a 9.2 out of 10. And my definition of good is anything that is over a 9, right? Which doesn't tell me anything, right? And I don't necessarily know that it informs you, really, because it isn't saying anything about what it is that you're responding to. So when we talk about what makes a good chocolate good, I don't think it's simple and straightforward, as Dylan said at the outset of his video. I think it's an incredibly complicated question. And it's one that, for me, right, has provided some of the fuel for a more than 20 some odd year journey in this world of cocoa and chocolate. It has certainly inspired me. It has certainly directed me. It is a goal, right, that I have been pursuing over the course of many, many years. And I hope that you will feel the same way about it. That's it. I'm done for the day. I'm closest to been on time that I've been in a while. But I do want to say to everybody, this is the homepage of the Chocolate Life right now. This episode of Pod Save Chocolate, like every episode of Pod Save Chocolate, is sponsored by the members of the Chocolate Life. You can go and you can click on this green button. I'm logged in, so it says account, but if you'll go there, it'll say join. Click on the join button, right, and support the work I do. I produce all of this at no charge to anyone and give it to the world freely. Right? And so I'm hoping that what you'll do is you'll go become a member of the Chocolate Life and support the work that I do. And I still have no idea why I'm out of focus. And I have no obvious way to get myself back in focus. I apologize to everyone for that. So it may be that I'm just trying to reduce bandwidth at my end. I'm not entirely sure what's going on. I will update the post for today's episode when I'm done here. I've got a little bit of work, so it's going to take me a while to download all the documents and embed them and do all the other things that I'm going to do. But it's Friday. It is June 20th. Yesterday was the solstice, the longest day of the year. I hope everybody, or at least in the Northern Hemisphere, I hope everybody enjoyed what you're doing. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube. Join the Pod Save Chocolate channel. Ring the bell so that you receive notifications in the future, and throw comments into the live chat, or it won't be the live chat replay in a few seconds, on YouTube or on LinkedIn or Facebook. Or if you're a member of the Chocolate Life, you can add a comment onto any post on TheChocolateLife.com. And with that, I want to say thanks everybody for being here and spending some time with me, and to remind you that if you're working with chocolate and you're not having fun, maybe you're doing it wrong. Until the next time, everybody, ciao.